What do you do when you're faced with an unbeatable enemy? Do you bring out your gloves and fight, recklessly expending all your energy, knowing fully well that you can't beat it? Do you tuck your tail behind your legs and run as far away and as fast as you can? Or do you raise your white flag, give up, and surrender? At the end of this presentation, I will be telling you the answer to that question. But before I begin, let me start by saying thank you to all of you for being here today. I want to say a quick thank you to Helena and my sister-in-law, Tammy, for making this possible. I've been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and I'll be sharing some of my experiences with you today. While some of those experiences are challenging and difficult, the idea is not for anyone to leave here feeling pity for me or feeling sad. I'm hoping to achieve two things with this presentation. One, obviously, is to give you better insight into what living with Parkinson's is like. And secondly, I'm hoping to be able to shed some light on how it is possible for one to find opportunities in adversity, and how I have come to find an unexpected ally in this diagnosis called Parkinson's disease. Before my diagnosis, I guess minus the freakishly large pupils, I would say that I was a relatively normal child. Went to primary school, secondary school, and at the end of my secondary school, my parents decided to send me to America to further my education. So I traveled across the globe, went to study in the US. I graduated in 2004 with a bachelor's in systems engineering and operations research. Got married in 2005, had kids, worked for several years with a construction company called Turner. In 2013, my husband got relocated for work, and we had to pack up the house and travel across the globe back to Africa. We moved to Johannesburg, South Africa, and we were there for about 3 or 4 years before finally moving down here to settle in 2016. Somewhere in the middle of all of this was where my Parkinson's disease journey started. In 2010, I noticed a slight twitch in the forefinger of my right hand. Now, this was during a very stressful period of my life, and I didn't pay much attention to it. I just assumed that it was due to stress, and once the stress subsided, it would go away. Not only did that not happen, over the next year, the twitch developed from the finger twitch into hand tremors. At this stage, I went to see my doctor, who, he looked at me, performed some tests, evaluated me, and he said, essential tremors, benign essential tremors, you have nothing to worry about. Boy, was he wrong. By 2012, I started to feel a buzzing sensation in my thigh, and by 2013, I would wake up every morning with a lot of weakness in my arms. I wouldn't be able to grip anything or hold anything, and this will continue pretty much until about midday, and then I would slowly start to regain some of my strength. I would go to bed only to wake up and repeat the process again the next day, and this went on for a while. Obviously, by this time, my doctor was not as comfortable as he was the first time, and he referred me to go see a neurologist. I did all sorts of tests. I did EEGs, EMGs, MRIs, blood tests, too many tests over a relatively short period of time. And every time I took these tests and the results came back normal, I was like, oh, thank God I don't have this, thank God I don't have that. But after a while, I started to wonder, okay, if I don't have all these things that I'm taking, what's the problem? Because something obviously is wrong. My hands are shaking, I have this buzzing sensation in my thigh, and my muscles are weak every time I wake up in the morning. So I started to get concerned at the fact that I didn't quite know exactly what was wrong. By 2014, I started experiencing stiffness and rigidity. Actually, I take that back. I did not experience stiffness and rigidity. People observed that I was stiff and rigid. We had been living in South Africa for about a year now at this stage, and I remember very vividly going to the grocery store and ladies at the checkout, and this didn't happen once or twice or three times, this happened repeatedly. I would say maybe once or twice every single week. So I'd be standing at the grocery store checkout line, and when it was my turn to pay, the ladies would say, they'd look at me very concerned and say in a very loud voice, "Ish, why is your neck so stiff? Are you ill?" And in my mind, I was like, "Ish, why are your manners so stiff?" So after a while, it got pretty unnerving. And it's one thing for strangers to notice that you look stiff. It's another thing when close family members start to comment on that. By 2015, my gait started becoming visibly impaired. I would drag my feet while I walked, and I wouldn't be able to do much about it. Constipation, loss of sense of smell, anxiety and depression. I don't quite remember when any of these started, but I did experience them, but I'm pretty sure they all started before 2010. By early 2016, I'd been tested for Lyme's disease, Wilson's disease, rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, heavy metal poisoning, a plethora of illnesses, and they all came back normal. Finally, I saw a doctor I went to see a different neurologist in South Africa, and he said to me, "Look, I think you have some form of Parkinsonism. I'm not sure. Your race, your gender, and your age make it very difficult for me to categorically say that you do have Parkinson's disease. If you can, I suggest you travel to the UK and go see a movement development specialist there and see if they can properly diagnose you." Within a short period of time of looking at me, he said, "I think I know what the issue is, but I would like to confirm it with the DAT scan." He asked me if I was comfortable doing that. I said, I've come this far, might as well do what's one more test going to do to me. So I decided to do the DAT scan, and this was June 16, 2016, and on June 17, 2016, I went back to his office, I sat down, and he looked very sad. He said to me, "I'm sorry to say this, you have Parkinson's disease." One very short sentence, 9 simple words. And in a time span of just about 5 seconds, my entire life was altered, my entire life changed. I asked him a few questions. I asked him if it was terminal, I asked him if it was genetic, and he answered most of my questions. Some of you may be wondering, how did I react? I traveled to the UK alone because my husband had to stay behind and watch our 2 children. And as I left the hospital that day, I remember sitting in the Uber drive, going back to my hotel. And I wasn't happy, but I wasn't sad. I didn't necessarily feel calm, but I certainly did not feel anxious either. I just remember feeling this profound sense of gratitude, and that is not the typical emotion you would expect from somebody receiving such a diagnosis. I recognize that because in the time that I've been diagnosed, I've spoken to a lot of other people who have expressed to me the anger, the bitterness, the sadness, the fear, and all the stuff that we experience. I think for me, because the journey to my diagnosis took such a long time, I had enough time to contemplate actually having Parkinson's. But I remember feeling grateful. I remember feeling grateful that I knew I had a very supportive family, immediate and extended, that would rally around me and support me in whatever way I needed. I remember feeling thankful that I was actually able to travel from South Africa to the UK to do the test and see the specialist. And I think the biggest thing for me was I was happy that I had a name. For 5 years, I had gone from so many different symptoms, being pulled apart in different ways. Today it's stiffness, tomorrow it's rigidity. I finally had an umbrella term for what was wrong with me, and I think for me, the fighter in me also had something to aim and to target. I had something that I could fight. I remember feeling determined and driven not to let this illness get the best of me. I said, come hell or high water, whatever happens, I will fight as much as I can in every single way with with knowledge, with nutrition, with pharmaceutical intervention, with faith, with prayer, with everything that I had in me. I would fight this thing with tooth and nail for as long as I possibly could. And out of that drive, out of that determination, I didn't have a name for it yet, but a movement called Parkinson was born in my heart. Yes, Parkinson takes time. And for some reason, I merged the two names and I came up with Parkinson. Now, remember, I had already decided that I wanted to do something to motivate myself and encourage myself to exercise, to eat right, to do the right things, and to help me progress through this journey as quickly, and not as quickly, as efficiently as I possibly could. So I decided that I would start this movement called Parkinson. It's mainly an online movement, and what I do is I use social media and the blog that I created to encourage people, to motivate people, to keep them active, to challenge them. I define a Parkinson as anything that is done that empowers you. It's really any movement or action that is done in defiance of the limitations that are imposed upon you by an illness like Parkinson's disease. And I've gotten a tremendous amount of positive feedback from people that I encourage and that say that they find the post concerning Parkinson inspirational. And that has really helped me in my journey. It's helped me, it gives me a focus, and it helps keep me on the positive side of things. Now, I wish I could say that this was the end of the story. That I got diagnosed and I founded a movement and everything was well and good after that. Not quite the case. As you may be aware, Parkinson's is a neurodegenerative disorder. It gets worse over time. With the exception of freezing, these are a list of symptoms that I experience every single day that I have to contend with. The tremors are very difficult to hide. I'm sure you can see them as I speak. Anxiety and depression was a very tricky one for me. I grew up in Nigeria, and at the time when I was growing up, this was not something that we spoke or talked about often, or at all actually. Mental health was not something that I was very familiar with, so it took me a long time to even understand what was going on with me. And even though I had a very loving and supportive family, I really didn't think that anybody really could understand what I was going through. And so this was a journey that I had to pretty much take on my own and try to figure out my way out of it. Thankfully, utilizing my faith and belief in God, I was able to overcome it. Apathy and fatigue is something that I experience every day. I don't know if I'm fatigued because I'm apathetic or the other way around. But it's definitely something that impacts my daily life. I've talked about muscle stiffness, rigidity, and weakness. Bradykinesia is a slowness of movement. Everything takes me about 3 to 4 times, at least. It'll take the time it'll take a regular person. When you have kids that are 12 and 9, this is not a very useful skill to have. This morning, as I was brushing my hair, my earring fell out of my ear. Now, normally this is a 30-second detour for a normal person. It took me about 3 minutes to put this earring back on because of the loss of my fine motor skills, which I will talk about. But these are little ways and little things that affect people with Parkinson's that other people can't see. You can see the tremors and you can empathize with me about that. But you can't see the time. When I got here, my sister-in-law was waiting for me, so I told her I needed to go into the bathroom because one of my contacts was acting funny, so I needed to go and get it changed. She didn't say anything to me, but I took an inordinate amount of time to do that. Now she's my sister-in-law, she has to wait for me. I experienced anxiety over the fact that she'll be wondering, why am I taking so long? So these are things that affect people with Parkinson's on a daily basis that other people don't necessarily see. Hypomimia is a masked expression. My sister-in-law is supposed to look at me every now and then and do this so that she can remind me to loosen the muscles in my face. Because most of the time I have this masked expression and people think I'm upset or angry, and I'm not. It's just part of the symptoms of Parkinson's. Freezing. thankfully, I don't experience this every day. This is actually a very difficult one for many people with Parkinson's, especially older people. Sometimes if I'm standing here, to make a turn and get out of this position is difficult, and my feet feel frozen onto the ground, and it takes me a few extra seconds to actually coordinate my neurons to initiate movement. For other people, they can just be walking and then they just freeze, and you see them there for like 10-15 seconds, not able to do anything. So it's a very serious symptom of Parkinson's. The next three I'm going to talk about in a little bit more detail because they have had the most profound impact on my daily life. Not very helpful when you're trying to rush out of the house or when you're trying to do projects with your children. But this is Parkinson's. This is every day. Some days are better than the others, but on the average, this is what my life actually looks like. Now, the third video is was a very difficult one for me it was a very difficult issue for me. When my daughter was born and as she grew up, I took a lot of pride in being able to put her hair in plaits and cornrows and things like that. It was a bonding experience for the two of us. Over time, as Parkinson's progressed, I lost the ability to do that. Now, on this day in particular, this was about a year and a half ago, the lady who had asked to come get her hair done didn't show up, didn't call, just didn't, nothing. This was 4 o'clock on Sunday evening, and she had to go to school the next day. And she was not going to go to school with her hair unkempt. So I had to, that was one of my what is my Parkinson moments, where I had to draw inspiration from myself and in the movement that I had started. And I said, okay, this needs to be done. It took us 4.5 hours to get 8 corners in her hair. Something that would probably should have taken me an average of 30 to 45 minutes in the past. And it was very, very difficult for me. It was difficult for me to accept that I had lost the ability to do that. It was difficult for me to understand, to deal with the fact, to process the fact that I was subjecting her to that much stress. Because it was she was 6 or 7 at the time. And I just didn't think it was fair to put a child through that. Moving on to cognitive impairment. So yesterday evening, and by the way, it's a miracle that I've gotten this far in presentation. Because yesterday evening, I sat in my bed and I was trying to rehearse for today, prepare for today. And I forgot many of the words I was supposed to use to speak, and I was stammering, and I just started crying. And I said, I can't do this. I was hoping that I would catch some type of a flu between yesterday and today. I'm being very serious. And that I would just not have to do this. It's one thing to read from a script. It's another thing to have to talk, after a presentation. And I was really worried that I would lose the words that I needed to say. If it was happening to me alone in my room, how much more, in front of 80 people that I've never met before. So executive function decline is something that I have experienced. I have trouble planning, focusing. Sometimes I have issues with my memory. I think my sister-in-law can also attest to that, because she tells me many things and I have no idea what you're talking about. Recalling my words and slurring of speech. Now, pain. This was an interesting one for me. For 7 years, since the first onset of my symptoms, I had refused to take any type of medication to help me. I felt like I could fight it. I felt like I didn't have to take it. And I've always been worried about side effects in the medicine. But I can clearly say that this was a trump card that Parkinson was hiding, and it brought it out in April 2018. I cannot describe to you what it feels like to wake up in the morning and be unable to walk properly out of your bed, or not be able to turn around in the bed at night, or not be able to go down the steps. I used to do the bum shuffle down the stairs. It was very humbling. I couldn't do anything about the pain. I couldn't fight the pain. Every other thing I could fight mentally. I could figure out a way to get around it. I didn't know how to get around limping, or not being able to come down the steps, or not being able to turn around in bed. So at this time, I went to see my doctor, and I said, okay, I think my 7-year journey on no medication is about to come to an end. I'm in a lot of pain. I stopped doing things with my kids. I was so tired. I would literally go to school, pick them up, come back home, and they would ask me for dinner. And I never vocalized this outwardly, but in my heart and my mind, I used to feel like, why are you talking to me? Like, what do you want from me? What more do you need from me? Like, I picked you up from school, isn't that enough? Like, that was how tiring dealing with the pain was for me. So I went to see the doctor, and he talked to me about different types of pharmaceutical interventions that are available to me. I spoke to him about the reasons I kept off medication. For me, at the time, I felt like I did not want to trade my symptoms for the side effects. I felt like I was able to manage my symptoms, and I didn't want to add the added burden of dealing with new symptoms, for lack of a better term. But it got to a stage where the fear of immobility overrode my fear of using medication. And I think it was May or June of this year, after 7 years of symptoms, I finally decided to go on pharmaceutical intervention therapy for Parkinson's disease. Now, obviously, there have been benefits and drawbacks. The benefits obviously being that the pain has pretty much all but gone away. But there are side effects, and I have started experiencing some of them, and they're not pleasant. And so there's a balance that, as patients, we have to draw between how much good is this medicine doing for me versus how much side effects it introduces into my life. And I think the next section, which is understanding patient history, is where many of you come into play. I think this human healthcare initiative that is being practiced here is a very important thing, and it's very beneficial and useful. For me, I think it's very important that you as clinicians and researchers understand the full patient history, and that we're not just treating symptoms, that we're treating the patient as a whole. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, I came across an article by Ben Stetcher and the other doctors that are listed there. And, they're proposing a new concept model for Parkinson's, where they feel like Parkinson's is not just one disease, it's an umbrella term for a cluster of illnesses. They argue that it's broken down into 3 phases: triggers, facilitators, and aggravators. Now, the triggers are the things that initiate the disease, but they're not sufficient enough to cause the disease to develop. Facilitators are things like genetic mutation, and those are things that cause the disease to spread throughout the central nervous system in the body. And aggravators are things that cause disease to progress and degenerate in the body. Now, if you look at this, if you look at this model of Parkinson's disease and you look at it from this perspective, then you understand that a tailored approach to medicine for people with Parkinson's is very necessary and is needed. Specifically for me, I put an article in my blog about a month ago called Connecting the Dots. Going back to this freakishly large pupil child, I told you that I lived a relatively normal childhood. I lied. Of neonatal meningitis. And today when I look at that picture, I have to ask myself, had I already started experiencing neurological defect at this young age? I don't know. Nobody really knows, but I think it's a valid question. I would grow up at the age of 10. I would start experiencing very violent nightmares, experience lots of anxiety. I wet the bed until I was well past 10. and I was probably the clumsiest child in here. My father used to joke and tell me that so he would tell people that if I were going that way and there was a glass of water over there, somehow I would manage to knock it off. That's how clumsy I was. But by the time I was in my mid-20s, I started, some blood tests revealed that I had elevated levels of prolactin. Now, I didn't know this at the time. This is, I found this out years later after doing research that prolactin has an inverse relationship with dopamine, which is the neurotransmitter that is deficient in the brains of people with Parkinson's. And I really can't help but wonder, were my elevated prolactin levels 15, 20 years ago, were they the first indication of the dopamine deficiency in my brain? I don't know, but my doctors knew it at the time, so I feel like it's important that the full patient history is understood and studied, that clinicians, doctors, healthcare providers, and patients, researchers all work together to have a proper understanding of what's going on. We're not just treating symptoms, we're actually treating the patient. And that's where the tailored approach comes into play. How has Parkinson's impacted my life, and what are the lessons I have learned? That's my daughter, Mimi, up there, and my son, Tay. Mimi is 9, Tay is 12. They're both going on 30 right now. So the things in black are the impact that Parkinson's has had on me, and the things in red are the lessons that I've learned. I wasn't doing any of the things in black. Today I can proudly say that I have started speaking at events. I'm an advocate. About a month ago, I went with a group of about 30 other people with young onset Parkinson's, and we went to Brussels to speak at the EU Parliament to try to help change the misconceptions about Parkinson's disease and to try to help drive policy change for people with young onset Parkinson's disease. I'm a blogger, a volunteer. I talk about Parkinson, and I really just honestly believe that where I am today is only the beginning of this journey. I'm only 2.5 years into it, and I choose to believe that my future is bright in spite of the Parkinson's disease diagnosis. Now, the lessons that it has taught me, and I put my children's pictures here because I hope that in learning these lessons, I'm able to impart it onto them as well. I hope that I can teach them to be kind and empathetic and not just see people at face value, like understand that people may be going through many more things than you understand, than you can see in the surface. I hope to teach them resilience, and it's important, and I hope to teach them the value in pain. I have found that pain can be a very, very valuable source. It can be a catalyst, and it can either destroy you or propel you into something greater. And I hope to be able to teach my children the difference between the two. Perhaps most importantly, I don't pray that they encounter an unbeatable enemy like I have. But in the event that they do, I hope that I'll be able to show them through my life how to tackle that enemy. So how do you defeat an unbeatable enemy? I found the answer in Sun Tzu's Art of War. He denied victory. How am I doing that? Well, with Parkinson, I keep trying every day to redefine the boundaries of limitations that it has imposed upon me. I have balance issues. I can't walk up with my 2 feet, but I try to stand on my head. I have rigidity and stiffness in many parts of my body, but I do back bends. Really, it's just to defy the odds that are being placed in my life by this illness. I talked to you about yesterday, wanting to quit, not wanting to be here because of my slurred speech and my inability to recall words sometimes. But I'm here, I'm speaking to you guys, and I'm standing right here in front of you. And lastly, the tremors are extremely distracting, and there is a vicious cycle between the tremors and anxiety. So the tremors start, and then I get anxious, and the anxiety makes me shake some more, which increases the tremors, and it just never really ends. But I press on regardless. My challenge to you today is, what is your own unbeatable enemy? and how do you plan to deny the victory? I will leave you with a quote by a very fantastic, beautiful, but not quite modest young lady. I believe that opportunities exist within the confines of adversity. Your perspective is, however, the light that will guide you towards it, or the darkness that will blind you from seeing it. Thank you very much.